Hi, in this video we're going to look at the biconditional symbol, which is this left and right arrow, and its semantics, that is, its meaning. Let's turn to it. The biconditional symbol is this arrow that's pointing both left and right, the left and right arrow, and it reads as if and only if or just in case. So if we look down at this sentence, the way you would read that is A is a cube if and only if B is a tetrahedron, or A is the cube just in case B is a tetrahedron. If and only if is oftentimes written in shorthand by writing IFF. And what the biconditional symbol roughly corresponds to is the English if and only if. Although, at least in my experience, I hardly, in ordinary language with everyday people who aren't logicians or aren't philosophers or aren't mathematicians, I hardly ever come across if and only if. Okay, so the way that the biconditional symbol connects sentences is it occurs between the sentences that it's connecting. So this symbol, do really a good job. This symbol is in between those two atomic sentences, and so it's connecting those two sentences. Works the same with complex sentences. So that biconditional symbol is connecting the sentence to the left, which is a complex sentence, which itself is a material conditional, and is connecting the right sentence, which is an atomic sentence. So that reads, if A is a cube, then A is small, if and only if B is a tetrahedron. All right, so turns out English works the same way. If and only if and just in case occur in between the sentences that it's connecting. So A is a cube if and only if B is a tetrahedron. A is a cube just in case B is a tetrahedron. All right, let's turn to the semantics of the biconditional. Okay, so what's the biconditional symbol mean? A sentence P if and only if Q is true if and only if either both P and Q are true or both P and Q are false. So when they share the same truth value, that's when a biconditional is true. When their truth values differ, that's when a biconditional is false. And if we look down at this truth table, that's precisely what it represents to us. Because in situation 1 and in situation 4, their truth values are the same. P and Q are both true in 1, so it outputs true. P and Q are both false in 4, so it outputs true. In situation 2 and 3, however, we see that the truth values of P and Q differ. In 2, P is true, but Q is false. In 3, P is false, but Q is true. And so in these cases, it outputs false. Okay, so we have one last way that we can think about the meaning of a biconditional, and that's with the hint-a-cut game. And it tells us that if you commit yourself to the truth of P if and only if Q, then you have committed yourself to 1, P and Q both being true, or P and Q both being false, which is just what we were saying above. But you've also committed yourself to the truth of both if P then Q and if Q then P. So you've committed yourself to a conjunction of two conditionals, one running one direction, the other running the opposite direction. So what I mean by that is in the former conjunct here, we have a conditional that's proceeding from P to Q. So if P then Q. whereas in our second conjunct, it's moving from Q to P, so it's if Q then P. And in fact, you can see in the locution if and only if, it's giving us both of those conditions. It's a conditional if, telling us conditional is running in one direction, and only if, telling us that it also runs in the other direction. So what the game will do, it'll change P if and only if Q, a commitment to it, to the conjunction of the conditionals, one running one direction, the other running the opposite direction. All right, so let's turn to playing the Hintica game to see how it works with the biconditional. All right, so here we have a sentence: A is a tetrahedron if and only if A is large. And we are talking about a world in which A is a tetrahedron, but A is small. So it'll turn out that this sentence is false because this part of the sentence is true, but this part of the sentence is false, meaning that they differ in truth values. And when when you have a biconditional where the sentence is that it's connecting different truth values, it'll turn out that it's false. But let's play the Hintica game and see how it works with biconditionals. So first, let's say we think it's true, even though we know it's false. Notice that it rewrites the A is a tetrahedron if and only if A is large into this conjunction of two conditionals as the conjuncts. So in the former one, we have if A is a tetrahedron, then A is large. In the latter one, we have if A is large, then A is a tetrahedron. So they're just running in opposite directions. And so we're going to say, yes, we believe that to be true. So that commits us to both of those being true. Of course, the top one is false because A is a tetrahedron, but it's false that A is large. So it picks that one since that's the one that's false. It notes that it can be rewritten as it's either not the case A is a tetrahedron or A is large. It can be rewritten that way because as long as the antecedent is false, material conditional will be true, and as long as the consequent is true, a material conditional will be true. So we say, yes, we believe that. Of course, both of those are false, so that we're going to end up being proved wrong. We can try picking that one. And I lost. But we could go back and try to pick the other, and we'll still lose. Alright, so let's try saying that it is false. Again, it's going to rewrite the biconditional as a conjunction of two conditionals running in opposite directions. Right, and so now we're going to pick the one that we think is false. If I pick this one, I'll end up losing because it turns out that that material conditional was true. So we see that I've lost, but it tells me that I could have won. So this is the one that's false since the antecedent is true. A is a tetrahedron and the consequent is false. It's not the case that A is large since A is small. And now we see that I've won. And so what the Hintica game is doing as we proceed through it is taking our initial commitment and breaking it down to what else it commits us to until it gets to an atomic sentence that we are committed as being true or false in this particular case. Alright, that wraps up this video on the biconditional symbol and its semantics. I hope it proves helpful.